All right, so landing a vehicle that is orbiting the moon. Got a nice low orbit here, so that would probably be the easiest situation you can be in to land rather than coming straight at the moon. You technically could fly straight to the moon and just land in one shot, like burning at the last second. That's called a suicide burn. It's difficult to pull off, but it is a little more efficient. But this is how I like to land. So nice low orbit. Let's go ahead and that's a little bit too close. Let's go over here so we have some time to get to it. I'm going to set up a maneuver, and by going retrograde on this maneuver, we can kind of preview where we want to land. So let's just land over here. Some small craters usually isn't too big a problem. So yeah, and actually, we can line up with that maneuver node indicator here on the nav ball ahead of time. And I'll time warp a little bit till we get there. Looks like we got burn time's going to be 1 minute 33, so I'm already a little bit late here to start because we're T-minus 20. The burn's going to take 1 minute, so let's actually move this over here a little bit. We'll land over in this area where it's nice and bright. Burn time's going to be 1 minute 33 seconds with my current engines. Let's aim back over to the maneuver node indicator. I time warped a little bit too far. So let's go, what's half of 1 minute 33? About 45, 46 seconds, right? So let's do the node in T-minus 45 seconds. That's when we'll burn. A little bit further. So we'll start now. Hit Z. And I don't even need to watch it at this point. I'm just going to watch the orbit itself. Until we're landing, maybe around here would be nice. So now we're going into the crater. And we'll probably end up landing a little bit closer to where I have this targeted. Hit X here to stop that, because we're going to slow down more once we get even closer. All right, so now we're on a suborbital trajectory. It's going to crash into the moon. I'm going to add another maneuver here. Let's slow down even further. A little bit hard to see, but we still have a little arc here. That burn's going to take us 45 seconds. Move it closer. I do not want to do this one late at all, because if I burn, what's half of 45? About 22 seconds or so. So if I burn 22 seconds early, that's fine, but then the other half, the 22 seconds, by the time the burn's done, I may have actually crashed into the moon. So even though the burn time here says 45 seconds, I'm going to burn 45 seconds early. The trajectory won't be exactly like that, but it'll ensure that I don't crash into the moon. So I'm going to time warp a little bit, even though it's a little bit dangerous to do so. All right, we got T-minus 1 minute 24 seconds. And you can see that I'm doing all this from the map view because really all I'm using is the nav ball and these maneuvers. I could be looking at the ship back and forth, but honestly that just kind of wastes time to flip between screens. So I'm going to do my burn here. And at this point I am going to switch over to the ship view because the rest of this landing I'm going to do manually without using maneuvers. Landing lights with the U key and extend our landing legs with G. I'm going to hang right on my maneuver here that I set up. I could also just be on the retrograde indicator, that would also work. And I'm going to switch the indicator at the top from sea level to surface radar. So we are actually 7,000 meters above the surface here. All right, so done with the maneuver. And from here, we're just going to pilot this manually down to the surface. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to stay in this little retrograde indicator here and watch my speed and this altitude at the top. So I'm going to make sure that I can I'm going to just kind of take note of how quickly I can slow down. So if I fire, okay, so that's how slow I'm slowing down. So I just have to make sure that I can get down to 0 before this gets down to 0. And I'm just going to kind of eyeball this a bit. So I'm not slowing down. It doesn't slow down that fast, so I'm actually going to keep it around maybe 50 meters a second. I'll kind of keep dropping down to that. We'll go a little slower once we get closer to the surface. You can see that the retrograde indicator isn't straight down, so if you actually want to straighten that out a little bit, you can burn off to the side like this. And that'll bring the retrograde indicator a little bit closer to perfectly center, so straight up and down. So now we're not moving sideways at all. Let's drop our speed. All right, let's stop staying at 50. Let's go maybe down to 25 meters a second. And I'm only using 2 of these engines at a time because I'm going to drop them away once they're out of fuel. Because these are out of fuel. These still have full fuel in them. And basically, I'm right in the center of the retrograde indicator. If I veer off to any side of it, it's going to push the indicator in the opposite direction. So by doing that, we can try to keep that retrograde as center as we possibly can. Because we don't want any sideways movement. If we're moving sideways at all, we're going to end up tipping once we hit the surface. "700 meters. I think once we get down to maybe 200 or so, we'll drop the speed even lower. Alright, so those engines are done. I'm going to let go of those guys. So now these guys are full on fuel still. And let's actually keep firing consistently here, just to make sure we're not speeding up or slowing down. Those engines blew up down there. Alright, we want to hit at less than 5 meters per second. Fight against this retrograde indicator a little bit. There we have a nice gentle landing. So you saw the craft kind of tip there a little bit. If that would have started tipping at all, what I would have done is if it started like tipping further than that, I would have hit the Z key to power up further and abort that landing. So actually, let's pretend we aborted the landing. I'm going to fire like this. So I would have just fired like that, like, oh, this is not going well, I'm going to abort. So we're just going to basically try again. It's not letting me time warp, so I'll just wait. I'm going to turn on RCS because that's going to make me turn a little faster. We got some RCS thrusters here, I think. Let's cancel out our sideways movement. Try to get that retrograde indicator right in the side, or right in the center, rather. Let's come down. Because once you tip over, it can be very hard to actually recover from that. So if the landing is not going well, what I would suggest doing is just firing away from the moon and coming back and trying again. There we go. There's a nice landing. All right. You had also asked about some of the, I think, cargo containers, because you are familiar with doing already some of this science. I probably have a lot of the science already from this area, so I'll keep some of that. I got my goo containers inside. Let's aim my camera a little bit so I can see them better. Got my goo containers in here. Yeah, you can see I already got most of them, so I'm not even going to bother doing the other ones. I don't know if this will work here. No, that atmospheric scanner doesn't work on the surface. For some reason the barometer does, but already got the pressure scan. Already got a temperature scan. I've got some more advanced science over here. So this is the gravioli detector, which you can unlock. I'm going to keep that. And this is the seismic accelerometer. I'm going to get science from that. We probably already had a crew port from here. Yeah, we already had the crew report. And now Bob Kerman, I'm going to have him exit the vehicle with EVA. EVA is another thing you need to unlock by upgrading one of the buildings. I forget which building that is. But he can do an EVA report, which he already got the science from that here. If I hit space, he'll let go. If I hit R, he has his own RCS thrusters. So I can actually navigate him around with his own RCS. And the cargo, I have the experiment unit in here. That cargo component lets him do this, perform EVA science. So this is a special science experiment where he hits a golf ball into space. Beautiful experiment. And then you get science from that. I've already done this. He can also collect surface samples. The ability to take surface samples is another unlockable thing you can get. And all right, let's get him back in the ship. All right, so leaving the moon. You basically can fly off in any direction you want. I think technically east is best, but I'm just going to fly off in any old direction. Let's fly off this way. I'm actually surprised that this center engine I'm actually going to save for last. I'm going to shut down this guy. Oops, I hit a button by accident. All right, so now, oh, that's still firing. Hide actuation top. Shut down engine. That's what I want. There we go. So now that center one isn't firing anymore. All right, what's our trajectory? We are not orbiting yet by far, so let's keep boosting. Because what I want to do is I want to run these tanks out of fuel first and drop them away so I can have the center tank for last. Dropping away tanks as you use them is the most efficient way to go about it. Let's point up a little bit. So if your nav ball indicator is in the blue, that means you're pointing up slightly. So yeah, we are very close to the moon. I don't want to get hit by a mountain, so I'm actually going to aim more into the sky to raise that apoapsis up a bit more. Say 30,000 should be plenty safe. All right, so let's just coast to that. Add a maneuver. I'm going to make the maneuver so I get a nice orbit around the moon. There we go. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just want to make sure the periapsis is reasonable, 21,000. Yeah, that doesn't look like it should hit any mountains or anything, so that should be fine. All right, let's time warp a little bit. And let's go back to our prograde direction, or actually probably just the indicator here is fine. Yeah, prograde and the maneuver node are the same. And I'll just burn here till I see that orbit gets around the moon. There we go. Yes, that's fine. So, leaving the moon, what you don't want to do is you don't want to... See, which way am I going? This way. Is you don't want to leave the moon flying off in that direction, because that's going to make your orbit potentially a lot bigger. See how that's going further beyond the moon, the orbit of the moon. We want to fire going the opposite direction of the direction the moon is facing. So let's see, that's leaving down there. Let's bring that so it's pointing roughly away from the moon. Because that will make the orbit shorter if you're going away from the moon. We can also, if you want to be a little bit more perfect about it, you can use these indicators to kind of drag that trajectory a little bit more to the right. because you can see mine's a little bit offset here. And where's our periapsis? Let's get our periapsis nice and close to the planet. 432. Let's burn a little more prograde. We got 341, 236, 129, 65's in the atmosphere. I don't want to enter the atmosphere. I actually want to, I'll have the fuel to slow down once I get there. So let's actually leave it maybe around like 100 or so. Yeah, it's fine. 112. I guess, yeah, so there's one thing that could have gone wrong. If I would have burned this way, like going around, instead of this direction, if I was going left and right here, then you wouldn't be as efficient. You'd kind of have to coast to one side and then slow down. Or you could have waited till the moon was over here, because by the time the moon's over here, these directions would have been flipped. But anyway, so long story short, you want to burn away from the direction the moon is traveling, because that will make your orbit back to the Earth very short. Or back to Kerbal, rather. All right, so let's just go and do that maneuver. Looks like the burn's going to take me 21 seconds. And these are the same, you know, I'm firing 2 engines, which is exactly the number I was firing when I was slowing down the moon originally. The difference why the burn is slower, or actually the burn is faster this time, is because I weigh less. There's less weight here. I've been dropping away those extra engines. So because we weigh less, the burns will take less time. They'll be more efficient. That's why, especially for landers, it's important to kind of build them in a way that you're dropping away the empty tanks as you use them, because that makes you lighter as you're going. And that is incredibly, incredibly more effective than taking all the tanks with you for landing and returning. So we got T-minus 36 seconds. So half of 21 seconds is about 10 seconds. So we'll wait till T-minus 10 seconds here. And we'll do the burn. Watch the fuel in these tanks, so once they run out, I can separate them and activate that other engine. Okay. All right, got that nice and accurate. And we should be on a trajectory home. Yep, so now we got a periapsis of 109,000 meters. I could just enter the atmosphere, drop lower, and hope the heat shield keeps up, but since I have fuel to spare, I'm going to use it to slow down. That'll make re-entry much safer. So I'm just going to put a maneuver here. I'm not even going to change anything on it. I'm just going to use it as a reminder if that's where I want to burn. Okay, so we're going home. See, it's also nice, since I'm not going into the atmosphere yet, if I accidentally would have time warped around, I would have been safe. Like, nothing really could have gone wrong there. Can go wrong if you drop lower and you time warp into the planet. Then you would probably die. All right, so I don't really have any kind of indicator because I don't have any planned trajectory. I'm just going to point retrograde here. Come on. I'll turn on it. SAS and RCS to kind of control myself better here. So there's retrograde. We're going to reach that node in about 4 minutes. 3, 2, 1 minute. Yeah, I could probably start burning around here. So I'm just going to point retrograde. Nice and center on that. And just monitor this orbit. So I keep track of when I'm in space and when I'm not. Anything below 70K is back in the atmosphere. Alright, those tanks have run dry, so I'm going to jettison them. I'll activate this engine again. I'm going to stop it. I'm going to get a little closer to my periapsis here for better efficiency, and so I don't drop any lower. All right, so let's say I didn't have much fuel left. And in your case, like when you come back from the moon, you might not have this much fuel still. Your orbit may still look pretty big. So actually, let's pretend that we don't have as much fuel. I'm actually going to make, because you've landed before. You've actually slowed down and entered the atmosphere nice and gentle before. I'm going to attempt the not so gentle entry. So let's actually pretend that we don't have as much fuel. I'm going to make this orbit a little bit more bigger and aggressive, to the point that we run out, and we're going to do a little bit more of a fast and hot entry here. So this wouldn't be part of what you would normally do, but just for demonstration, I'm going to try to enter in the atmosphere directly from further away. Yeah, so let's say this is you only had a little bit of fuel left. Say you only had a little bit of fuel left, and this is what it looked like. With the tiniest bit of fuel, the most efficient place to burn is actually going to be at the apoapsis, because burning at the periapsis is the place where it affects the apoapsis the most, and burning at the apoapsis is the place that affects the periapsis the most, if that makes sense. So at the apoapsis, I am going to turn retrograde here. So away from... Oh, I was already at retrograde, so that's fine. And just with a very light touch, I'm going to drop this till the periapsis is around, let's say, 40,000. And let's say that's all the fuel I had. So if that was all the fuel I had, let's just pretend that I can't use that anymore. So now I really don't have anything. All I have is my heat shield. Let's close these doors on my little service bay. And hopefully, I don't know if this lander can... I don't know if the game really recognizes the heat shield as bigger than the lander can or not. It is possible that we'll die. So we'll find out if that heat shield will be enough for the vehicle. Because I have no control anymore other than a little bit of RCS. So we're going to see if just holding retrograde and hoping that heat shield does what it needs to do. All right, so we are going to be entering the atmosphere here shortly. There we go. Let's get pointed retrograde. And let's point retrograde with respect to the surface. So the orbit and surface. So this is just relative to the surface because that means relative to the air as well. And we'll see if we survive. All we got to do is keep this guy pointed the right direction. If we see any heat bars show up, meaning that the lander can is getting damaged, that will probably be a bad sign. But hopefully the heat shield will take all of the force here. And since I haven't really tested this lander, I don't know how stable it is. So it's possible that it'll flip the wrong way if I get out of this perfect orientation. So I'm going to try to stay in the center as perfectly as I can. Yeah, I can tell it's fighting me a little bit, so it might not be the most stable, but it's not too bad. And I'm not seeing any heat bars show up, which is good. Which means that the plasma is not touching any of the components here. Even though it kind of looks like it should be touching this, I don't think the game recognizes that this piece is bigger than this piece. They're effectively the same size, I think, as far as the game's concerned. Could be wrong about that, but that's what it appears to be. I'm tempted to time warp, but I really shouldn't. Increasing the physics speed could make this thing wobble more, which I'm a little scared about. Yeah, so heat shield will be plenty good. While I'm waiting, I can check these stages here. Let's see, we should have the drogue chutes first. Yeah, so the little ones. And then the single top one I have. Yep. And then the side ones. So the plan will be to do the drogue chutes first. Once I start getting closer to the surface, I'll do the single one at top, which will slow us down most of the way. And maybe just a little tiny bit before we land, I'll do the side ones to slow us down the rest of the way. That way we're not, that way we're safe, but we're not waiting super long. Get a nice sunrise here. Oh yeah, this is working just fine. We're actually skipping off the atmosphere a bit, so we're actually going up at this point. So I didn't realize this, but this vehicle is actually relatively heavy. So coming in fast at 40,000. 40,000 turns out was not low enough. We actually skipped off the atmosphere and we're going back up. So I probably should have entered, maybe from now on, I'll enter around 35,000 meters. But that's fine. What's going to happen is we're just basically skipping off the atmosphere. We're going to go around again and come back in. So at this point, it should be safe to time warp. And let's see, actually, this is a good experiment. See, if with SAS off, yeah, the craft does want to tip naturally. So it's definitely not stable at re-entry. So it definitely does need that SAS in constant babying to kind of enter safely. All right, so let's zip around the planet once more. I guess I can't time warp too fast unless I'm above 70. So let's just time warp as much as we can here. You know, I wonder if I have an EVA report from the high atmosphere. It might be, I should be able to manage this. I'm in time warp though. I'm already above space, so we'll forget that for now. Okay, above 70, time warp should let me go a little faster now. So if you were going really, really fast and you were really concerned about the heat, what you could do is intentionally enter shallow, maybe at 42 or 44, and intentionally skip off the atmosphere so that you don't, burn up all in one go. Realistically, we probably would have been okay to dive straight in at 35, but it's probably good to demonstrate kind of the safest way to do it, because I have lost entire missions to things going wrong during re-entry. It happens. All right, re-entry number 2. This time our periapsis looks like it's dropped down quite low to 29. Yeah, so we are definitely going to be dropping in. Unfortunately, it will be dark. Time warp a little bit till we start seeing some heat. There we go. Looks like I need to start controlling this again. A little bit of a longer video than I intended because of this re-entry sequence, but that's how it is. So yeah, the main point of the video was really just to do the moon landing, but I figured I'd show the remainder of the mission. Trying to keep this nice and center. For anyone else watching, I could also be using these buttons down here to hold retrograde automatically. Not all pilots will have these abilities unlocked, so for this video I'm just doing it manually by holding it with the WSAD keys, making small corrections to keep it in there. I wouldn't have to fight it so much if the front end was heavier. Generally, if the bottom of your craft near the heat shield is the heaviest part of the craft, generally that will make it more stable when re-entering, and it'll naturally orient itself in the correct way. Unfortunately, ooh, yeah, now it's really fighting me, because unfortunately the top half of my craft is heavier with that command module. Oh, come on. Alright, we lost stability. But hopefully we're slow enough that things aren't going to blow up. Yeah, entering into this orientation is extremely dangerous, because we're entering like a bullet, and we are not slowing down as much as we should be now. Because now we're more aerodynamic, which is bad. We do not want to be aerodynamic, at least not in this way. Okay, come on. I'm going to try to point up a little bit, using the body as kind of an improvised wing. Yeah, I think if we lost control maybe 20 seconds earlier, we would have been in some serious trouble. But parachutes look like the drogues are not yet safe. Are they safe? Safe, okay. As soon as the drogues are safe, it's a good time to try to activate those. And we are above the surface, so let's get down maybe to... You'd probably do 5,000 meters or so before we do the first of the main chutes. Alright, let's do the first of the main chutes. And that chute should open fully around 1,000 meters. Generally with parachutes it's relatively safe to time warp. Although you need to turn off time warp sometimes to stage, I think, for the staging to work correctly. We should see the main chute open here. Yep, that should slow us down. We'll see how slow we get. We still have another stage of parachutes we haven't activated yet. So that gets us down to 10 meters a second, which is too fast to be safe. But we'll get down to maybe... There's something flying by. Some other piece of debris. Get down to maybe 500 or so. We'll activate our final stage. Here's 2 more main parachutes that should slow us down significantly more. And they should be fully open. So now we're at just under 5 meters a second. That's what you want to see. You want to be under 5 meters a second for safety. Probably I can drop away the heat shield for a little bit extra, a little bit less weight. Yeah, so now we're down to 4.7, 4.6. Can't see what we're landing in. Probably going to be ocean. I had lights on the other stage pointing down, but I don't have lights on this stage. The only lights I have here are the internal lights. And let's time warp down until we hit the surface. Alright, just about to get splashdown in the total darkness here because I went around the planet and ended up landing not where I thought it was going to land. Alright. And we have the mission complete.